Welcome to Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin, and today I have my very special guest, my cousin Carter. So, how are you doing, Carter?
Doing great.
Awesome. So, today we'll be talking about the John Wayne and John Ford classic film, Rio Grande from 1950. But before we get started, I have some essential details about the movie and to kind of get your thoughts on it, Carter. So, all this is from IMDb, so we'll take it with a grain of salt, right?
Mhm.
But says here, according to Maureen O'Hara in her autobiography, some stuntmen died in the middle of the shooting of this film when they fell from the horses during a scene in the middle of a river. And this has been, speculated. Some say it didn't happen on this one, some say it did. So, what are your thoughts on that? Would you believe that people died in the crazy, crazy stunts they had in this movie?
Um, I wouldn't be surprised. I There was one stunt in particular that I'm thinking of where Kathleen O'Hara's character is riding in a wagon and
Mm.
the guy in the wagon gets shot and he falls forward in between the horses and then
Yeah,
under
yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
wagon, and then they just show his body lying behind and he gets stepped on by another horse. And I don't know if that was a dummy that they just pushed over or what, but I was really impressed with that, at
Yeah,
least.
yeah, for sure. I mean, tons of those stunts are just absolutely crazy. Um, I remember that one you're talking about. There's another one I remember where, uh, or maybe I'm thinking of I'm thinking of Stagecoach with the guy
Mhm.
who's jumping on the horses that are connected to it. But still, just another John Ford film, just in
Right.
general. He did a
I've
lot of
seen that
crazy
one too.
stunts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, just anything with a horse, just it's like holy crap. Like, how do they do that? Like, how do they punch the horse?
Hmm.
Crazy stuff.
I did not realize people might have died making this though. That definitely a different era.
Oh, for sure. They're probably like, just walk it off. Like, he's dead, sir.
Yeah.
Oh, oh man. All right. Let's see another detail. And allegedly, those bodies were never recovered.
Oh, geez. Yeah. I mean, I guess dredging a river is pretty difficult. So,
Yeah. Like that one scene with all of them on their horses just going through the water.
hmm.
That's crazy. Okay. And then here's one more detail here. So, of all the shooting locations for this movie, none of them were actually near the real Rio Grande.
Really?
The Rio Grande, according to this, flows in Colorado, New Mexico, and Texas. And almost all the shooting was done in Arizona. None of it was done near the actual
Yeah.
river.
I definitely recognize some backdrops from Monument Valley,
Uh-huh.
but I've never seen the Rio Grande, so you could fool me.
Right. I think I saw parts of it on my mission now I think about that. It was pretty dry. It wasn't,
Really?
yeah, it wasn't big and flowy like in this movie. Well,
I
it wasn't really there, but
Yeah. I only think of the Duran Duran song Rio. It's one of my
right.
favorites.
Yeah, exactly. All right. And so those are all the details I had. And before we get into the plot, why don't you kind of introduce yourself a little bit, Carter?
Yeah, my name's Carter. I'm a BYU student right now, studying psychology, but loved movies over the years and big into movie trivia. And I like learning about how movies are made. So recently, I have seen a few John Wayne films in the last year, I would say. So this was my fifth one, and I was able to compare it to those other ones.
Nice. Yeah. And I think I already mentioned, but we're cousins as well. So it's always
Right.
fun doing this together. And just growing up, we would watch all kinds of movies from like A Few Good Men that we did recently to the Cat and the Hat movies. So
Yep.
quite the range. And also The Dark Crystal. That was a big one we used to watch as
Classic.
kids.
Yep. And
And
Spaceballs.
and Spaceballs. Yep. In fact, on my old channel, The Dark Crystal, he and we discussed that movie. So if you're on YouTube and find Surfing Through Cinema, you'll find it there. It's still up there. So
Yeah, it's a good one.
yep. All right. So now we'll get into the actual review of Rio Grande. So out of a scale of 1 to 5, what do you give the plot, and what are some things you noticed within the plot that you wanted to discuss?
So, and I think this is related a lot to the other points as well, especially directing, but I gave this one a 2 out of 5. I and I'm curious to hear what your reaction was to it, but
Hmm.
at least out of the 5 John Wayne movies that I've seen, I would have to say that this was just my least favorite one. I didn't feel like a lot of the plot elements were very connected. Um, the way I saw it, there were kind of two main plots in the movie. There was Colonel York and
Hmm.
these Indians who keep escaping into Mexico, where they're outside his jurisdiction, and
Hmm.
that's really frustrating for him. And then the other plot is he's being reunited with his son and wife, who he hasn't seen for 50 years since the Civil War. And the way the movie's titled, you probably would think that the plot with the Indians would be receive the most attention in time. But I would say that it's more about that reunion with his family than anything else. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I also gave it a 2 out of 5.
Oh
I
yeah.
Yeah, I did not like this movie at all.
Oh okay.
The Like you
Glad we're on
said,
the same page.
yeah, pretty much everything you said about the plot, but one thing I'll add to that is it kind of felt more of a reactionary storyline. Like it didn't feel like there was really an end goal in mind. Because,
Yeah.
like, oh, now the Indians have escaped. Oh, now we got to cross the river, talk to the Mexicans. Oh, now this and that. Like it didn't feel like there was a real story that was trying to happen. There wasn't a main villain. There wasn't really anything like that. It felt more like one of those History Channel documentaries than it did a movie, honestly.
Yeah. Or I felt like it could have been an episode in a TV show
Right, right.
where we'd heard or learned something about these characters ahead of time. But in the movie itself, this is our first introduction to them, and it, I don't think it's a great one.
Hmm. Yeah. And speaking of John, what other John Wayne movies have you seen?
So the first one I saw was El Dorado, and I actually looked up the dates for all of them because I was just wondering if maybe this was one of John Ford's first movies, and it just getting into it. But
Nope.
no, because the oldest one of his I've seen is Stagecoach, which is
Hmm.
with John Wayne, 1939. I've seen El Dorado with John Wayne, which is not a John Ford film, but good one nonetheless. I've seen Kism, which is one of Wayne's oldest movies, or sorry, newest, most recent ones.
Hmm.
He filmed it when he was oldest, and The Searchers, which was a Ford movie.
Hmm. Oh, I still need to see that one.
The
Yeah,
Searchers?
yeah, yeah.
I mean, I know we're reviewing Rio Grande right now, but if you want to, that movie is great. Like that's probably one of my favorite westerns I've ever seen.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'll probably bring you back on for that one because I just got it recently and I've been wanting to check it out. But uh but yeah, back to the back to Rio Grande. Right?
Right.
It just shows you how really interested we were in this plot. It felt kind of pedestrian. It felt like you said, a TV episode, not really anything worth noting. Um, a lot of the John Wayne films I've seen actually haven't been his westerns because I wanted to focus on his war movies for a while. So
Oh, and I haven't seen any of those, so I got to
yeah,
get into them.
yeah. Uh, he did. I did two with that with In Harm's Way, which was pretty good. It was a '60s World War II movie, and then the other one was The Fighting Seabees. That was not good. So
Really?
he's been
I've
kind of hit and miss with those too.
yeah. Well, I've heard of one called The Sands of Iwo Jima, and that one sounds good.
Yeah, I think I'll say Clint Eastwood did a remake of that. Anyways, that
Really?
has yeah. Anyways, that doesn't have anything to do with Rio Grande. So that just shows you how good the plot was, right?
That you were thinking about other ones.
Yeah.
Well, and to speak to the Indians again, this was one of the things I wrote down. Are we going to get into the section about like would I recommend it? Should I save it for then?
Yeah, I do have a would you recommend at the end.
Okay. Well, actually, I think it fits better now. I had just said that one of my big problems with the film was that we have no motive to establish why Wayne or Colonel York wants to capture these Indians so much. It's annoying that they're out of his jurisdiction, but he doesn't have like any actual skin in the game. Which in a
Right.
movie like The Searchers, he has skin in the game. Like his niece has been kidnapped and her parents have been murdered. So it's very personal.
Yeah.
And the other thing was that I think they could have played it off because we've got this tragic event in the past where he was forced to burn. Um, I assume it's where his wife is from. Is that what you garnered?
Uh I think so. I don't know.
Yeah. Just during the Civil War, he had to burn this plantation as part of a campaign, and I'm pretty sure it's like the town that his wife is from, or she was living there.
I think so. I think it was her plantation even, like her
Right.
family's. So it's gone with the wind a little bit too.
Yeah. So if they had somehow connected his current campaign with the Indians with like his Civil War past, I think they could have pulled it off, but I just see no semblance between those two events. They're just like they could be two different characters for all that it matters to the plot.
Right. No, they don't really belong together because there is no, like you said, nothing connecting them.
It's interesting that you've seen a lot of his military movies because I was wondering, just as you had said that, whether you would consider this a Western or an army film. Like,
Yeah,
because he's in the military, but he's in Texas fighting Indians.
right. Yeah. Um, I would consider it, I would still consider it a Western just because of the like the chase sequences with the Indians when they're on horses and wagons. But for the most part, it could easily have been a World War II movie, you know. Um, he's a colonel, he's a leader, he's always a character like that in his war movies. There's always some conflict. In fact, in Harm's Way, he also has an estranged son that's joining and just so happens to
Oh,
be in his battalion. So, but
okay.
that one came out after this one, but still, like he's done similar plots.
Do you think they did it better in that one or in this one?
Oh, for sure, that one. That one, there were stakes in it because it was an active war. His son could have died because he didn't want to put his son in it, and they're like on the front lines. Like it was intense. So that one is a much better
Yeah.
version of this movie, I guess.
Which I guess if you're ready to move on past plot, that's almost getting into acting and just the character that
Sure, yeah.
Wayne is playing. Or we could stick with plot. Were there any other points you wanted to hit?
No, that was pretty much it. We could go into acting. So, what are your thoughts on the acting?
Well, I think we were talking about it a bit just right now is that like the different stakes. I feel like usually John Wayne's characters, they're always like the typical tough guys and they're super skilled or they're very experienced.
Mm-hmm.
And we kind of get the sense that Colonel York is experienced just because he's the leader of this regiment, but there's never like a scene in the film that establishes him as someone we should admire. Yes, he's very committed to his post and to his duty to the point where he burns down his wife's family's home,
Yeah,
but we don't find that out until I want to say more than halfway through the film. And it's almost like the only way that you would respect this character that John Wayne is playing is if you've seen other John Wayne films and you're like, oh yeah,
right,
he's kind of drawing on their reputations. But
right,
in terms of the character in this movie, like we have no reason to root for him even.
right. No, there's nothing to really root for, like you said. In fact, he doesn't really do anything. like,
Yeah.
I think he shoots someone, but like, there's no big shootout where he's the hero saving his wife or whatever. He just rescues her, but that's not the same as like in Harm's Way. That's the one I keep thinking of.
Mm-hmm.
His team actually blows up uh, a bunch of airplanes that are coming and attacking an island. So there's no heroic moment like that with him in this movie.
Or like in Stagecoach, we've got him as a bandit,
Right.
trying to turn a new leaf in his life. He does save the girl multiple times,
Uh-huh. Yeah. And especially the end with that shootout.
but you're right. Here, it's some random kids that get kidnapped who we've seen in a few shots throughout the film,
Mm-hmm.
and the only acknowledgement he has is he charges into the church, looks at them, sees his son, turns around and walks out. It's like,
Right.
what? What?
It didn't make any sense. Um, so on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you give the acting then?
um, I did a 3 out of 5. Just I have a lot of respect for John Wayne. It
Hmm.
doesn't seem like he was given a lot to work with here, and of course, we still have a few other main characters that might be worth talking about in acting too. But I don't know, where did you put the acting?
Yeah, I actually also gave it a 3 out of 5. I thought it was kind of a mid-tier John Wayne acting because
Mhm.
he's not known for being like a Oscar-worthy actor. He's like I would compare him to like a Bruce Willis or Arnold Schwarzenegger for today, uh, who also aren't known for that.
Yeah,
Um, it was just, I guess, average. Like you said, if you know more about John Wayne and his other movies, you already have that coming into this. Um, what'd you think of Maureen O'Hara's character? She did a lot of movies with John Wayne.
yeah. I hadn't heard of her unless she's in one of those other ones I've seen. I just didn't recognize her.
Hmm.
But I looked her up and just saw all the movies she was in, and I recognized several of them. So she seems to kind of have been just classic. What phrase did I use to describe her? Untouched beauty. She seems very delicate.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. But she kind of, in other movies, she kind of stands up, and like the John Wayne especially.
She
Uh,
did have, I thought it was kind of weird that they chose her to play a mother. Like she just looks too young.
yeah, she does, huh?
But I mean, I
Especially a
think,
son that young or that age too.
yeah. And they tried to say it like, oh, he enlisted, he lied about his age. I think they're trying to say that this guy that plays, what's his name? Jeff. I think they're trying to say he's like 16, maybe.
Yeah, yeah.
But I don't buy that.
I don't either. It's like that guy looks like he's 30 years old.
Yeah. Yeah, he's scrawny. Like I could probably fight him and no one else in that movie, but
Right. No, exactly. No, I didn't really like that character talking about that.
and in terms of acting, he's definitely the worst in this movie.
Yeah. No, he's definitely the, I guess, the Mark Hamill in this movie.
Yeah, it just seemed like they found like a pretty boy kind of.
Yeah, definitely.
And I also, speaking back to the plot, I thought he was going to have a bigger role. I thought it was going to be like father and son learn to respect each other type thing, and that's how it started out. Like
Yeah.
we see him having this chat with his father, and he says, "I was assigned here. I don't care to have a relationship with you." Gets in a fight to like show up, pretty much prove that yeah, I'm here of my own accord. And I think that fight scene is probably one of the best parts of the movie. It's
Hmm.
fun.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was
But
kind of
then,
random though.
yeah, but then as soon as his mom shows up, it's like, I swear he's not in the movie for like the next 30 minutes. So,
Yeah, he just shows up every once in a while when something crazy's about to happen, and there he is. And you see John Wayne like, "What? York? No."
yeah, they should have picked one or the other. It should have either been united with his wife or united with his son. It shouldn't have been both.
No, yeah, I agree. Honestly, as much as I love Maureen O'Hara, and she's great in Miracle on 34th Street, uh, and another one called Jamaica Inn, which is a Alfred Hitchcock film. I
Hmm.
actually think she didn't really add anything to this movie. I don't think she should have been in it.
Oh, yeah.
I
Definitely
honestly,
the way they set it up. You're totally right.
yeah, just kind of random. Like, oh, the mom's here now. Like, what?
I'm guessing they didn't. What do you know what year Lawrence of Arabia came out?
I believe 63
Okay, so that's
or
later.
62. Yeah.
But because I know that movie's famous for having like no female characters.
Right, right,
So maybe they felt like they had to put a woman into the movie. They just did not do it very well,
right. Excuse me. I
which
do
is too bad.
know I do know they worked all three, John Wayne, John Ford, and Marino O'Hara, they worked together a lot. Maybe they had some type of deal or something like that at the studio,
Mm,
but she didn't need to be there.
yeah, probably my favorite character. Definitely, I think he's Irish. Major Quincannon.
Yeah, the drunk guy who keeps drinking.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I
he's
just
funny.
love that he's so Catholic. You see when Marino O'Hare first arrives, he does the sign of the cross. Like,
Yeah,
oh
yeah,
boy.
yeah.
And when they're fleeing that church during the shootout, he turns around with the girl, takes the knee before the altar.
And then
Just
they walk out.
yeah,
Yeah. Oh yeah. I liked him a lot. I wish we had more of him in it.
yeah. He's definitely the humorous aspect of the movie and kind of humanizes a lot of the characters.
Definitely. He's definitely the uh what do you call it? The he breaks the tension a lot.
Yeah, especially because he was there for that arsonry in the past.
Right, right. He's supposedly he was the one who started the fire. Yep.
So, were
Well,
there any
cool.
other characters that we should hit on?
Uh, not really. I mean, the Indians and the Mexican characters, they were just there. They didn't add anything to the story. So, like I said, there wasn't really a villain or someone that was antagonistic,
Here's
which
my
is a
question to
shame.
you. Do you think that they were implying that the Mexicans were like complicit with the Indians?
Probably. It kind of felt like that, huh? Because they didn't seem to care that they were on their side.
Yeah.
Uh,
Or when Colonel York offers to go with them, they're just like, sorry, we have to guard the river, even though there's only three of us.
right. Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question because yeah, they didn't really seem scared or anything. Yeah, but there's only like one or two scenes with them too. It's they also didn't add anything to the storyline.
Right. Huh. Yeah, they were just kind of faceless villains. No, anyways, don't know
Right.
where I'm going with that thought.
Yeah, but yeah, I think overall the acting was just okay. It wasn't superb. All right. So what are your thoughts on the directing of by John Ford here?
Um, I definitely felt like there was a lot less effort on this one. It seemed to be kind of phoned in, especially after reading about the production on The Searchers and him making the actors redo scenes over and over and over to the point where they're like passing out from exhaustion.
Hmm.
And then seeing something like this where um, it just like we already talked about the plot kind of meanders. There's nothing really going for it. There are several like scenes that felt like they should be reshot. I'm thinking of a scene at the end where oh, it's hard to describe, but a guy just straight up falls off his horse right behind John Wayne, and the whole cavalry charges out. Maybe it was just too hard to reshoot it,
Yeah,
but
maybe they ran out of funds or
he
something.
falls off his horse. Another guy gets off his horse, like make sure he's okay, and they're just sitting there in the frame as all these horses are running by, and it's like, what? What is happening?
Oh my goodness.
So just a lot of mistakes that I didn't recognize in his other films.
Yeah. And and so what would you give that out of five? Like a one or a two?
I did it too.
You did two? Oh, well, I was a little bit nicer. I gave it a 3 out of 5, but pretty much everything you said, it feels like he didn't really add in his tropes. He's known for his crazy shots and crazy uh just his style of filmmaking was really not in this movie. It
Mhm.
honestly was probably more of his assistants than him, honestly, making this movie. Like,
Oh, I hadn't thought of that.
it didn't really feel like a John Ford film. Um, like the I haven't seen The Searchers, but like Stagecoach, that
Yeah,
movie, it's got crazy camera angles of people during the action scenes. Even some of the dialogue scenes, there's interesting angles and all of that. This movie doesn't have any of that. It just feels, like we said earlier, like a TV show. Like this could have easily been a Rifleman or a Bonanza. Like, didn't really feel
so
like a movie.
so maybe I also didn't. This was the category that I wrote the least about, and it's just because I'm not super familiar with him as a director.
Mhm.
So, what are those things that he's known for? I think you mentioned a few of them already.
Yeah. Well, in The Searchers, for example, one of the famous scenes in that is John Wayne standing in the door, kind of in the middle of the frame.
Hmm.
And then another, I think in that same movie, is like a crazy zoom on his face, kind of what Spielberg does.
Hmm.
Spielberg stole from, well, not stole, but borrows from John Ford. Um, and his endearing characters too, like ones you want to connect with, empathize with. He's known for that as well.
Yeah, I. It definitely feels like we're in the middle of the action for this movie. Like these feel like real people, and maybe that's one of the things we're not giving the movie credit for. Is
Hmm.
this isn't like a 2 hour character has a major life change adjustment like you see in a movie. And maybe that's, as we said, it feels like a TV episode. It feels like they just set up cameras to record like things that might have actually happened out in Texas. So maybe he was just going for a different feel for this movie.
Maybe. Because this one, for some reason, when you look up John Ford and John Wayne, is in their like top 10 list.
Hmm.
I don't know why.
Yeah,
I don't see the
no,
reason for that.
I didn't like it as much as his other movies. So maybe that's just me trying to find or justify that high rating. Because I remember seeing like it had a 7 out of 10 on IMDb,
Mhm.
which usually anything over 6.5 is like pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't get it. Maybe everyone was thinking it's The Searchers or Rio Bravo, which is another movie they did.
Hmm.
Uh, they have very similar names. In fact, Rio Bravo's part of the Rio Grande,
Oh,
like
it's like
like
part of the
a
river?
like the actual river. Yeah, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay. Gotcha.
yeah, it's on the American side, but that could be it. I don't
Hmm.
know. I don't see why it's up there. Yeah, but kind of speaking about cinematography, uh, and special effects, if there are any. I don't think this one really did, but what were your thoughts on that on a scale of 1 to 5?
I did 3.5. I and my main this was the category I liked the best for this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know to look for those unique John Ford style shots. The thing that I found most impressive was that it seemed like they filmed a lot of this to be night scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Whether they actually filmed at nighttime or in the evening and just had filters on the camera, I don't know the technology at the time. Probably tell me more than I can say. But I was just impressed how many scenes took place at night and you could actually see what was going on. And
Right.
I can think of a lot of movies that fail to do that, fail to make it feel like nighttime, or it is completely dark and you just can't see anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, from my understanding, they had a couple of ways of doing this. They actually filmed it at night. They had a stage that they didn't light as much, but lit up around the characters. And then they just shot during the day and put a filter
Hmm.
on top to make it look like night. So that's why in some scenes kind of looks like the daytime, but for some reason it's muted and darker. Um, but which is pretty common for
Mm-hmm.
westerns and just movies in general.
Okay. Because that was the thing that I was keyed into the most is just that there are a lot of scenes that take place at nighttime and they look really good.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I actually gave it a 5 out of 5. I thought that was the best part of the movie.
Oh, cool.
uh, Yeah, I liked I liked a lot of the stunt scenes. I thought they were really, really excellent, especially the ones with the um oh, what are they called? With the carts, that kept flipping over and all that. That was
Mm.
really cool how they were able to do that. Very, very realistic and pretty tense moment for sure. Um, I just wish there was more of it. It couldn't decide, like we've been saying, if it wanted to be a romantic movie, if it wanted to be a father and son, or if it wanted to be an action movie. And I kind of wish it was more of an action movie.
Yeah. Well, or what about the scene towards the beginning of the movie where they ride the horses Roman style? That's
Yeah,
kind
that was cool.
I was impressed. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah, I didn't know that was a thing, riding two horses at the same time. Like, that was crazy. And if I'm not mistaken, it looked like uh not John Wayne's character, but his son character. It looked like he did some of it.
I
Like
think it
he,
actually was him,
yeah, like
which is
that's
crazy.
crazy.
Maybe that's half the reason they hired him. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe he was a stunt guy. Like, hey, you're young enough. Let's.
Put you in. So I like that scene a lot. Um, that was still towards the beginning of the movie when it seemed like it had a direction,
uh
and that was a good establishing scene of showing like these army guys having fun. But as you said, I wish there was more of that kind of stuff in it.
yeah, it kind of feels like it takes a back seat for 45 minutes.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Did
but
you like the final scene with the church rescue?
um, I like parts of it. Some of it felt a little silly. Like I really did like the Irish guy, kneeling and all that, but it felt kind of rushed. Like there weren't really any stakes. Like there wasn't really much fighting going on between the army and um the Indians. Like that should have been the big scene, where tons of gunshots, tons of stabbing and all that. We didn't really get much of that. I was very disappointed with that.
Yeah, it was too short, and we didn't really see anyone dying. We saw John Wayne get shot with an arrow.
Yeah, I thought he was gonna
But
die.
yeah, he just catches it and pulls it
It's
into
like,
himself. But
oh,
yeah, and that was the most exciting part of the movie was when his horse rears up, he's got his pistol in his hand, Indian shoots him, and then like fight scene's over.
yeah, it's like, okay, we're done. Like that's a wrap. Yeah, and then oh, I was just thinking of another plot point that we could kind of add on to here. So there's that one guy who was, I guess, a bandit or a murderer, like
Mhm.
that little subplot. I don't know if I like that either. It felt kind of weird and out of place. I don't know why it was there.
I I don't know either. Like I get they wanted to have three of the people in this new recruit batch. Like they wanted three of them to be actual characters. So we've got the son, we've got the one guy, Sandy, who's always got the straw in his mouth and says yo.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And then we've got this guy who uh, is on the run from the law. So it's like they're trying to have three interesting characters in the recruits that we care about them, but the way they go about establishing it's just silly.
Yeah, you know, now that I think about it, this kind of feels like a pilot for a TV show.
Mm.
This movie in general, like those could be the main characters of the show, those three guys. And yeah,
Yeah, or like they're just the two friends for Jeff that are just going to be in all the episodes, and
right, right,
we learn more about their backstories later.
right.
Because wasn't what was Sandy's character's name? It was
Oh,
Boone, right?
something like that, right? He was the redhead, right, with the straw. Oh, I don't remember.
Daniel Boone. That was his name. Daniel Boone. And see, they make note of that. They're like, don't I know you from somewhere too? And it's because Daniel Boone is like a famous frontiersman.
Right, right.
So it's like they almost, I bet if they had had more time, money, whatever else, that guy would have had more of a backstory too, but they just didn't for thankfully.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe this should have been a TV show.
Yeah,
It probably would have worked. But I just don't understand a lot of the choices they made. So I actually just pulled up Maureen O'Hara here, and the fifth movie on the list is this movie, Rio Grande. Once
really.
again, it's like, why?
But yeah, she's pretty in it. I'll give her that.
Maybe that's what it is, right? I just don't get it. Ugh. But overall, cinematography wise, uh, I thought it was great. It is the highlight of the movie, and um, I don't know. I don't get a lot of the other choices they made. All right, we'll move on to the music. What are your thoughts on the music?
So I gave it a 3 out of 5. I I didn't think the soundtrack was super noticeable or memorable. It didn't stand out as unique. I just thought it was funny that they had all these songs in it. And this is one of the points I wrote down under acting. It's like, and John Wayne's not a super deep emotional character, but they've got all these songs, and it's almost as if the songs are supposed to be showing his emotions and acting. And
Right,
so
right.
thought that was funny. And I wonder if they were being paid to put songs in there, because you remember that part where John Wayne's leading the company and he keeps yelling back like, "Let's have a song going!" Like I
Yeah,
swear
yeah,
3 times. It's like what?
yeah. There's like this is almost a musical. There's like 20 songs in this movie.
Yeah, I thought it at one point when they were singing at the dinner party. I was like, "Could this be a musical?"
Now that would have made it interesting. They made a
Yeah,
Western musical,
yeah, it would have been real interesting.
especially to hear John Wayne sing. I've heard him sing, and it's not very good.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
In Flying Sea Bees, there's a scene where he's like drinking and then he starts singing, and it's not good.
Oh boy.
It's supposed to be taken seriously, and it's bad.
Oh man. Well, glad they spared us that, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It felt they felt one or two would have been fine. It just felt weird that they kept having these guys singing in the movie.
Yeah, it's like I get that he's kind of a gruff guy, doesn't really show his emotions. But how many songs are we gonna have directed towards his wife, you know? Like, what is this?
Yeah. Or he just calls for a song from them randomly. Just
Yeah.
Congressman, let's have a song. What does he say? Forget your thirst and sing us a song.
Yeah. It's like, I don't care if you're thirsty, sing a song.
Yeah. Ugh.
Yeah, no, it's
Weird choice, as you said. Weird choice.
I wonder how many writers are on this movie because a lot of movies that are all over the place, it's because they have like five or six different people writing it or who wrote it. I bet there was a lot because I feel like there were so many subplots, so many different things they were trying to do. Oh, maybe it's a Roy Rogers musical. Oh, it's a action western. Oh, it's a romance. Like they couldn't pick a lane to stay in.
Nope. Yeah. Did you have any other points down for music?
Um, no, just the same. Like I don't know why there were so many songs for his wife. Like I think one would have been perfect, especially if they were trying to hit home and then at the very end or something like that. I don't know. It's just so random. It felt like they were trying to record an album. It's like, oh yeah, here's the next song for our album.
The
Check it
Rio
out in a
Grande.
couple. Yeah,
Rio.
for Rio Grande record. And I don't just mean like the movie studio itself. I mean like the characters in the movie. Yeah, we're inspired up and coming artists. We want to record a soundtrack. So we'll sing every once in a while. It kind of felt like that.
Yeah. The soundtrack, though. Any thoughts about the soundtrack, or just
It was average. I also gave this a 3 out of 5. It's just your average Western music, nothing that really stands out. It's not like the Lone Ranger, for example. Nothing memorable at all.
hmm,
So,
yeah, I agree there.
all right. So, what is your final letterbox score tallying this all up and getting the average?
Um, I actually need to take it really quick.
Mhm.
So, do you want to do yours first while I'm
Yeah, sure,
doing
we can
some
do mine
quick
first.
maths?
Yeah. So, I gave mine an overall score of a 3.2 out of 5, which I'm rounding to a 3 out of 5. Because letterbox, it only does halves or wholes. It doesn't do quarters or anything like that. So, yeah, 3 out of 5. Um, it was just a mid-range film. For my listeners, this reminded me a lot of uh, Flying Seabees, where it was just, oh, another John Wayne Western, just another John Wayne film. Not, it's not in his upper echelon like Stagecoach or, like you mentioned, The Searchers or all of his other ones. This one to me feels like, okay, we need to make this so that I could buy my next condo or something like that.
Yeah.
This
Was
felt like a
CB's
paycheck movie.
also was CB's also a highly rated one that you were disappointed with, or was that one?
Uh, I can't remember. Let me check real quick. I don't think so because I found it on VHS super randomly and I'd never heard of it before. So let's see, Fighting CBs.
Because if I had to rank all the ones I've seen with John Wayne, all the westerns I'd seen, I would say The Searchers is the best. El Dorado is the second best, and El Dorado is more of a comedy too, so that one's really fun.
Oh, really? Oh, I need to check that one out.
Kisum would be third. Stagecoach would be fourth,
Hmm.
just because it's one of his first, and I just don't think he's quite got it yet. But it is a good movie, and this
Yeah.
one's definitely fifth.
Yeah. Let's see. So looking at John Wayne here. So number one is The Searchers, and then Stagecoach. And then let's see. It looks like number 12 here is Rio Grande, which is this movie. Then all the way down here is Fighting Cities. So no, it's not up there.
Okay,
So he
where?
made he made like
Okay,
300 movies. So
yeah, he made a lot. It's no surprise that some of them aren't very great. It's just surprising that one that's rated so high. He's got better to offer, which my score was 2.7, so I guess I would put that as a 3 as well,
mhm,
which is already getting into what I recommend it. I would
yeah,
recommend other John Wayne movies first.
yeah. If you're a diehard John Wayne fan, maybe this is. I don't know how many of them are still around. Like I said, he made over 300, so I guess watch it, but only if you're a John Wayne fan.
Yeah, I agree there.
Yeah. I would say stick with the ones you hear people talking about first to get that established, get that out of the way, and then watch his lesser known ones. I don't make the same mistake I did because I'm not super impressed so far.
Oh, yeah, that's a bummer.
uh, but I really did like Stagecoach and In Harm's Way, but I did not like The Longest Day. I didn't like The Fighting CBs. I think that's it. I think I've seen 5 or 6 of them so far, but yeah, stick with the ones you hear people talking about first.
I think the next one of his I'm going to seek out is probably Sands of Iwo Jima. I want to try one of his army ones, and I've heard good things about it.
Yeah, I need to check that one out too, because I think he did a lot in the 40s and 50s that were war films, but it seems to me the ones he did in the 60s, like The Longest Day, uh, In Harm's Way. Well, I didn't like The Longest Day, but In Harm's Way was really, really good, and it's from later in his career. So I'd be curious to hear. I think Sansa Iwo Jima was in the 40s or 50s. I'm curious to hear a
Yeah,
good one from that era.
1949. That is crazy to me that they would have made a war movie about stuff that happened like 4 years prior.
Right? Or during, like Fighting Seabees was about the current war effort. They were
Hmm.
a they were a construction corps within the army, I think. I think it was Army or Navy. No, it is the Army. And and the whole point of it was we don't have any guns, and we're out there building all the airstrips and all of that. We need guns to fight against the Japanese who are bombing us.
Hmm.
So that's the whole premise of the movie is John Wayne getting them guns, but it was not a good movie.
Okay.
Sounds good. I'm making it sound better than it is. Um, yeah.
I
Anyways,
guess, yeah.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I guess it's not totally unique. Like we have movies about Afghanistan and Iraq even before the US had left Afghanistan. But
True, true. Like
given the era, like it's impressive that they were able to turn them around so fast.
oh yeah. Well, and I know John Wayne got a lot of heat back then because he didn't actually fight in the war at all. He was making movies during the war.
Hmm.
Um, but I think it was because he was too old. I'm not sure. So I don't think he would have been drafted. He might have been too old for that, but John Ford did. John Ford went overseas. He was a general. No, I think he was a general.
Hmm.
He was there making documentaries for the army and all that. But nevertheless, he was in the middle of it. you know?
That's crazy. I did not know that. I'll have to look him up.
Yeah, John Ford was a weird dude though. Like he would wear an eye patch even though he wasn't missing an eye.
Hmm.
He'd chew on handkerchiefs. Interesting guy
Okay. Well, sounds like a character.
for sure. And have you seen The Fablemans? I haven't, but
Mm,
John Ford makes a cameo in that. Okay, no. I think David Lynch plays him or something like that. But anyways, supposedly that really encapsulates how John Ford was as a director.
interesting.
All right. Well, any last thoughts you want to add about Rio Grande before we close?
Oh, I think that about sums it up.
Yeah. No, this is definitely a mid-tier John Wayne film, but there's probably hundreds of those. Yes. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on, Carter. And I had a great time talking about, uh, even though it was a terrible movie, but talking about Rio Grande with you. And I definitely want to bring you on for when I do the Searchers.
Oh yeah, I'd love to. It's always a good time.
Yeah. That'll probably be sometime next season. So probably next year. But yeah, well, I know you don't have a channel or anything like that, but anything you want to say to the public before we close?
Like and subscribe.
Yep. Well, I got to get you on Letterboxd because that's a really good place to log and make lists and stuff for movies and chat with people. It's pretty cool.
I should definitely look into it. Thanks for the recommendation.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on, Carter. And thank you all so much for watching or listening to today's episode. Make sure to subscribe, like you said, to Instagram and Facebook at Really Old Movies, as well as Letterboxd, Twitter, YouTube, and then listen wherever you can for podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music. I think I'm on Google now, so pretty much anywhere you can listen to a podcast, we're there. And all right, well, this has been Really Old Movies. I'm your host, Harrison Scullin. Take care.